Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. EQOA Nostalgia here, and I'm standing in front of the Darver Manor diorama, where everybody parks their tunes to show off. It's kind of the end game right now, but hopefully everybody will go back to Freeport eventually. But you might remember that Darver Manor was a bit of a hotspot before Frontiers came out. And speaking of before Frontiers, I'm going to be talking about a video that was reviewing the game before Frontiers, and I hated it at first. I kind of still dislike parts of it, but I think he's got some good points. Oh, and before I forget, and not that I really want to, not that I want to bug anybody, but I'm going to ask you guys to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and yeah, we got to start showing that love to the like button, man. Not enough likes coming in lately, so I'm going to have to start putting this into the front of my videos. I didn't want to have to do it, but I know how it is. People forget sometimes, so please do me a favor. Help me with that algorithm. And yeah, I'll buzz off now.
He's alone. He's tired. The food is rotten. The bathroom is locked. Oh. And he's running out of one-liners.
Think, damn it, think. Sorry to pick on you guys. Yeah.
But I want to go over it with you guys. I want to hear what you have to say about it. And this is really old. I mean, you're going to be able to tell how old it is by the fact that it's like 480p or something like that. But anyways, let's just hop in there and let's get this thing rolling.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Welcome to Gamespot Live. I'm Greg Kasavin here to tell you all about EverQuest Online Adventures for the PS2. There's a good chance you've heard of EverQuest before. The game originally came out on the PC in 1999 and has been extremely successful ever since then. It's got hundreds of thousands of players playing it for hours and hours on end. Who knows how many millions of hours of...
There's your first indication of how old this is. You probably heard of EverQuest. Not so much today.
Gameplay have gone into EverQuest during all these years, and unsurprisingly, the company's now trying to bring that success over to the PS2, over to a broader audience, and onto consoles from the PC. EverQuest was always a pretty hardcore game, and with EverQuest Online Adventures, the company's definitely trying to kind of bring it to the masses, simplify it, distill it down to the essential kind of addictive gameplay that has made EverQuest so popular for all these years. The game meets with mixed success, really. On the one hand, if you've never played a massively multiplayer online RPG before, then EverQuest Online Adventures might really impress you. It could be quite a trip, really, just to be running around and knowing that all the other kind of trolls and elves and dwarves and such running around with you are being controlled by other players. And
right. So that describes, I think, the majority of us. This was our first MMORPG, so it was incredibly impressive.
You know, going on various hunting expeditions with several of your buddies or with complete strangers can be really entertaining in the same way that any multiplayer game can be entertaining, really. Plus, the core combat in EverQuest Online Adventures is still pretty fun. It's very kind of hack and slash. You take down enemies quickly, and you can, quickly recover and start fighting more, and soon enough you're gaining levels and gaining new and better equipment. So the game can be addicting in the same way that a lot of RPGs are addicting.
To hear hack and slash nowadays sounds a little weird because you think of something like an ARPG like Diablo, but if you take a look at EverQuest 1 and then you compare it to EQOA, it was definitely more fast-paced, and the combat was just more snappy, which is part of the reason why I really prefer EQOA over EverQuest.
On the other hand, EverQuest Online Adventures definitely isn't newbie-friendly and definitely doesn't lend itself to kind of quick or casual game sessions.
No.
Much like its predecessor for the PC, you really need to hunker down in order to get anywhere with this game. Just getting started, just the time it takes between powering on your PS.
Look at that. There's only 4 servers. They hadn't added all the other servers yet.
And actually seeing your character in the game, it takes several minutes between you sitting through multiple loading screens and various updates and kind of news flashes and choosing your server and accepting the mandatory end-user licensing agreement
Right.
every single time you play. Stuff
That's like every online game ever, though.
like this kind of wears down the experience and makes it very time-consuming. One of the other things that made
come on.
EverQuest
Taking time to log in, I don't think it's fair to say that makes it more time-consuming, but okay.
the original PC game, a big success early on was that it looked so incredible. People just wanted to see everything in this game. They wanted to, be an ugly troll or a small halfling or an elf or whatever and run around and see dragons and all kinds of weird kind of fantasy conventions that this game really brought to life. That aspect of EverQuest Online Adventures is inherently less appealing because the game really doesn't look very good. It looks pretty mediocre, really. A lot of the character models are a little bit ugly, dare I say it, and a lot of the environments are just kind of sparsely detailed and just kind of sprawling. You could just be running around through terrain that just all kind of looks the same. So the sense of, being a pioneer and seeing things that no one else has seen before isn't very pervasive in EverQuest Online Adventures because...
I will agree that at the time when EQOA came out, graphically it was inferior to other games, and that's because the world space was so massive that, you couldn't have a ton of things packed in. You have to pick or choose what you want. Do you want a massive, sprawling, incredible world that you feel like you're engaging in without loading screens? Or do you want something more densely packed like, say, Final Fantasy XI, which broke up the zones? But yeah, there is something to be said about that, but at the same time, I don't feel like it really took away from that sense of adventure at all, or a sense of finding things at all. I still had that adventurer spirit. I still remember sitting there with my zone map, looking up at the compass and playing a cartographer or an explorer. That was still incredible, and I don't think that the graphics or the lack of things being packed into each zone really impacted that at all. But that's just me personally.
Nothing about the game is all that attractive. But it's still serviceable, and the game sounds pretty good too, although you're probably going to want to have a CD changer in the room where you happen to be playing the game.
Yeah, he nailed that. After a while, everybody did that. I still remember using my original Xbox as like a jukebox while I was playing EQOA, and I just dumped every CD I ever had onto that thing. And so yeah, that's when you're doing long grind sessions, you don't want to hear, yelping wolves and smack thud for 40, 50, 60 plus hours. But I thought the game always was a pretty decent looking game. It was colorful and I liked the aesthetics of it. It didn't blow your mind, right? But just like Monsters and Memories, if you guys haven't heard of that game, it's a reason to be hyped. To me, that's like EQOA 2. It's got the more colorful aesthetics and everything.
Yeah.
So it does. It kind
And
of feels
at that
weird.
time, that was. I feel like for EQOA, that was the. I think EQOA looks better than EverQuest 1 as far as how many polygons, etc.
Yeah.
But it was obviously also the art style was determined by the hardware it was on too.
Right,
I feel like.
They had there was no loading, so it was all seamless between the zones. So that really gave it a very different feel.
Yeah.
Whenever I play EverQuest 1, it kind of feels like I'm in. I hate to say this because I do like EverQuest 1. It just feels like I'm in a shoebox. It feels like I'm in just a more closed off space with gates in between. Whereas
like you're in
EQOA,
rooms.
Wide open.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember feeling that way when I first played EverQuest 1 because I played Ultima Online first.
Yeah.
And I remember logging into EQ1 and it was this weird feeling like when I went out in the yard of Kinos and was killing there. But I found the zone line. I knew where the zone line was. It felt like I was in a weird room.
Yeah. It's not going to melt your face, but stylistically, the graphics are still really nice, and it has a lot of atmosphere. And I think EQA always had a lot of atmosphere going for it, despite the fact that, it wasn't gonna like blow your mind how incredible and detailed everything was. It still looked pretty good.
Make no mistake, the gameplay consists entirely of killing stuff, either by yourself or with others. It's just hack and slash, fighting enemies at or, slightly higher, slightly lower than your level, and gaining experience points and leveling up. That very core type of gameplay.
Right.
The original EverQuest had more to it than that. It had trade.
Well, I'm sorry to keep pausing it, but we had more to it than that. We did have questing, and this was before the Masterclass came out, and before we had tailoring and gems and all that, all the crafting and all that, fishing, and that came 9 months later.
Trade skills. You could make armor or bake various foods and brew beverages and stuff like that. You could also engage in player versus player action and either fight other players in designated areas or play on dedicated PvP servers. Unfortunately, EverQuest Online Adventures has none of that. It doesn't have PvP, it doesn't have trade skills. It's all about cooperating with others to kill these computer-controlled monsters. There's no real plot, no real ultimate goal. You're just gaining levels and improving your character.
Now, there is a plot, there's lore, you just have to read it. It's packed behind all the NPCs, and I think a lot of us realize that now, that people are scrambling to try to get that lore back into the game. But there was a plot, there were things going on, but you can tell this was extremely early, right? Because there's no PvP at this point when he's talking about it. People forget that dueling didn't come until later. Actually, I think there's a dueling trailer I'm going to throw in here. So yeah, I hadn't seen that for years, and then I saw it, I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't even have a computer when EQOA came out, so I wasn't able to really look up anything. I had to rely on word of mouth from my fellow players, which was frustrating, yes, but it made the world feel more real, I guess, for lack of a better word. It was just, I don't know, I had to engage with the community. I had to live in that world in order to get anywhere. And I really appreciated that. And I think a lot of the modern day conveniences, they pull that away from us. And it's not to our benefit.
That's really kind of a crass way of putting it. It can be a lot more fun than that, but even if you really like the game, you'll find yourself wondering whether all the time that you have to invest into this game is really paying off, since there's no obvious sense of development. One problem with the original EverQuest that's carried into EverQuest Online Adventures is the fact that the very first decision you make in the game is by far the most important decision that you'll make over the who knows how many hours you'll then spend with that character. And that's the fact that the combination of character race and character class that you choose right at first is going to be what governs the gameplay experience from there out. So if you choose to play as a warrior, you will be stuck doing warrior-like things thereafter. And maybe that's obvious, but of course there's no real way of knowing what the difference between a necromancer and a shadow knight, or the difference between a shaman and a druid is, until after you've played these races and classes.
Well, that's part of the fun, right? At least for me. And that might be a detriment to some people. But I loved getting to like level 10 or 20 or so, and just getting a feel for each class and seeing which one I liked. I mean, I remember starting a druid and I thought, well, I'm going to be a damage dealer. And eventually I became a stormcaller, and I was absolutely terrible at it, and I ended up becoming a wilding later and did a lot better. But yeah, that's kind of part of how it works. You know what I mean? You have to get in there, play the game, and experiment a little bit.
For a long time, and really figured out some of their nuances, but of course by then there's no turning back. The fact that the classes aren't 100% self-reliant is what makes you want to group up with other players in the game. Of course, communication with other players is made rather difficult using just the DualShock 2 controller, although the designers did try to map a bunch of common chat macros onto the shoulder buttons.
Right.
Still, there's just no way to use these efficiently in the middle of a fight, especially. So you could just plug in a USB keyboard and type away and try to socialize, but don't go in, trying to make it the Renaissance Fair and using a lot of these and thous and trying to act in character, because you'll quickly find that most other players are very much concerned with, where their next kill is. It's again, just the fact that you don't have any trade skills or any other real gameplay aside from killing of monsters really contributes to the sense that you want to streamline communications and just
right. So we didn't really have any role-playing servers. I think that's what he's trying to get at here. But I remember role-playing a lot as a troll and a dwarf too, just because it was funny and it was fun to do. So people did do that, but I mean, it wasn't really incentivized. You didn't have servers set up just for that. But yeah, it's kind of weird he mentions that communication is a problem. Well, no, dude, all you got to do is, drive your ass down to Walmart and pick up like a $10 Logitech keyboard and you're good to go. Or, use your brother's keyboard that he hasn't used in 10 years or whatever. It wasn't difficult to plug in a keyboard and just start talking to people, man.
Spend all your time as efficiently as possible on killing stuff. I don't mean to speak ill of the experience of playing EverQuest Online Adventures. I actually think it's pretty fun, and I've been playing games like this for years because I think they're really fun, and it's enjoyable to level up your character and be able to show off your fancy sword to all the others around you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But EverQuest Online Adventures definitely isn't a game for everyone. It's expensive. You have to pay a $10 monthly fee after your 30-day quote free trial is up.
Remember the $10 days before it went to 15? I still couldn't believe they did that. I'm like, really? You're gonna compete with WoW? You want the same price as World of Warcraft? Are you high?
And then of course the game costs a full $50 at retail, and you need your PS2 network adapter to play it.
Yep.
And it just takes up a lot of your time, and 3 megs on your memory card, all kinds of stuff.
3
Be
megs.
prepared
Wow.
to really commit yourself to this game.
Those are the
You
days.
can really tell that EverQuest Online Adventures is like a stripped down and distilled version of the original game.
Yeah, well, all they really did was take out all the fluff bullshit, dude. You didn't have to hail NPCs to get them to talk to you. You didn't have to go in your inventory and click and drag things. So all the busy work crap that I hate about EverQuest 1, and if you're an EverQuest 1 fan, I don't mean to offend you, but those things just got on my nerves. It was all the fluff cut out. It was still a hardcore experience. You didn't have to go get your corpse or anything like that. You got debt, and it still took a significant amount of time investment to get anywhere. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it's just a stripped down dummy version of EverQuest 1, because it's not. They just cut out a lot of the stuff that honestly doesn't translate very well.
You've experienced the original game before. But it's ironic that really the resulting game is still going to appeal to those who've been playing massively multiplayer online RPGs for a while now, rather than people who've never experienced these games before. If you've never played a game like this before or never been interested in them, then this game isn't likely to change your mind. It can still be quite boring. It's not particularly attractive, and it's just overly time-consuming for most people.
That reminds me of trying to get my cousin into it, because he was into SOCOM, and as many of you know, he passed away in 2006 at age 24 from cancer. I talk about him whenever I do the SOCOM stuff. You might have seen his picture in some of my EMU VR videos, but anyway, I tried to get him into it, and he just wasn't having it. I tried to get my friend Scott into it. He wasn't having it. They were more into shooters and stuff like GTA and stuff like that. So the majority of people are going to be into those more action-oriented games. But I think that if he would have gave it a shot, I think he would have got into it. And my friend actually did get into Guild Wars 1 years later. And I remember throwing him, he was sitting on the couch, and I remember throwing him the case to EQOA, and he threw it right back. He's like, I don't want to play that shit. I don't care about that. And years later, he's like, you know what, man, you were right. MMOs are amazing. I'm like, I know, right? I tried to tell you and Jerry years ago, but neither one of you wanted to join me. It's too late now. So I always regretted that he never really got into it with me.
But if you have enjoyed other online RPGs before, then you'll find a great big world in this one, and a lot to see and a lot to fight. and a lot of different characters to try out. So if you're willing to make the commitment, then you do well to give EverQuest Online Adventures a shot.
So there it is. I think that's pretty fair, especially if you consider that it was pre-fronts. Now, I remember the first time I came to this video, I was like swearing. This is like 10 years ago. Something like that. It was a while ago. And, you know, you got to give it to him. He's got a point. To compare it, though, to other games on the PC, it's not exactly fair, but if you're coming from the PC, right, think about it. If you're coming from the PC, you're not really going to be very impressed with this game here. At least at that time. Now, people are more hungry for traditional classic MMORPGs, and I'm finding a decent amount of people in the chat for this game that have never played EQOA before. They played EverQuest 1, and they absolutely love the game. And they're wondering how come they didn't play it back in the day. Well, because you had other options back in the day. Nowadays, if you want a hardcore MMORPG experience, you are extremely limited. Most things are a World of Warcraft theme park. And, you know, that stinks, but that's just a fact. And so now people are starting to see EQOA with different eyes. And I think that's really cool. I think there's something really awesome about that, because it's kind of getting a second chance, right? It's not going to be like 5,000 people jump in one day, but who knows? I mean, if you take a look at Resident Evil Outbreak, that game, I mean, it basically died in a fire and nobody really cared about it. And then all of a sudden, some streamer picked it up. And I found out that there was a ton of people playing Resident Evil Online, or Resident Evil Outbreak 1 and 2. And I'm like, what is going on? There's a bunch of these new players here. And yeah, come to find out, some streamer made it blow up. So you never know. Some streamer might pick up EQOA, which I'm sure would make a lot of people cringe. There are definitely gatekeepers here that don't want to see, you know, quote unquote WoW babies come into the game and bring their crap with them. And to some degree, I can see that. But yeah, it's one of those things. Hopefully with Season of Discovery and people rediscovering the roots of MMOs and what really made them special to begin with, hopefully we'll pick up more players. But yeah, all around, I think it was pretty fair, especially considering how early it was. Now, looking at those older models, I do miss the Troll and the Dark Elf. I wish we had the option to toggle between the two. Maybe at some point we'll be able to do that, where we can just go from pre-fronts to frontiers. And it'd be really, really cool if we got the robes back. If they could somehow take all the robes from pre-fronts and put them into this version of the game. But yeah, I want to hear from you guys about this down in the comment section below. Make sure you hit the thumbs up if you like this video. And if it's your first time here, you want to see more EQOA, hit that subscribe button. God bless. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.
Shut up!